IVM.
Hey everyone, welcome to Shunya One, episode 165. How are you doing, Amit? How's it going?
Uh, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm really excited about this conversation we're about to have. I'm actually excited about the upcoming slate of conversations we're about to have.
Exactly. I think we've been trying to, on the show, we've always had like entrepreneurs and startups and obviously a lot of tech folks, including a very techy conversation last week. But of course, we've been actually seeing a lot of founders and companies start up in the D2C space, which is direct to consumer space.
Mhm.
And I think it's time we did like a mini segment around them, and that's what we're planning. So this episode
Yep.
and a bunch of up and coming episodes is what you will hear around D2C products, D2C companies across the board, not necessarily tech born, but definitely tech enabled companies. I
Yep.
think because one part of being D2C is that you have to sell online, you have to sell direct to consumer, and obviously you have to innovate using a lot of tech.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and in
yeah,
this case,
that's
actually, the founder that we spoke to, right? In this case, Shashank from the Whole Truth Foods, they actually
yeah,
did do quite a bit of innovation in terms of how they built their, made their product. It maybe not on like a technology as in computer programming, but technology as in
yeah.
how to keep food fresh, kind of space,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
And he
man,
talks
of
about that a little
course.
bit.
Not just
Yeah,
that, I think
he
it
definitely.
go all the way back to like educating people online and how big content plays a big part in how
Yeah.
education happens. Especially in the space that he's building in. I think it's very important that you have an authentic voice. And I think from all the way from writing his own blog to acting his own ad, he's really sort of taken up the piece to do it himself, right? So yeah, it was a very fun conversation. I can't wait for you all to hear it. Hey Shashank, welcome to Shunya One. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
No, it's great to have you. And we're already in 2022, as it is still sitting at home doing our podcasts. You're someone, of course, I'm guessing not. You already know what the podcasting world is like, and
sponsor,
you also
sponsor,
run a
sponsor.
very and you also
No, no,
run
he's
a
been a
very
sponsor. I'm
very
not.
cool brand.
Yes. Thank you so
I was
much.
just saying
Which
that Shashank's been a sponsor.
yeah.
I'm not asking him to sponsor. Just thought I should clarify that.
Yes,
Though I am
yes.
asking you to sponsor, but I just mentioned that he has been a sponsor.
I got it, but I didn't.
Sorry,
But
Shiladitya, did not mean to.
the fact remains that you run a brand which is sort of, you might say, born on the internet and born digital. So of all of us, at least me personally, I've experienced it, especially post the pandemic. I would say, to a very large extent, more than I should have probably indulged. And like most people, I'm guessing. And this show, and obviously a few of the next episodes that we'll be doing for everyone listening in, is actually going to focus on brands like yourself. Uh, so tell us all about what the Whole Truth Foods is all about. In fact, Whole Truth Foods was, I called something else when you actually launched, right?
Yeah,
And tell us a little bit as to why you got into this business, and what was that insight which led you to what you are today.
sure. I'm gonna take 2-3 minutes because what I'm doing today is kind of like the culmination of both my professional and personal journeys. Like in hindsight, it seems like life was leading up to this very moment. So I'm
Hmm.
going to talk through both journeys to explain why we are doing what we're doing. So professionally, very staid old middle class Indian journey. Uh, Born and brought up in Delhi. Did my engineering. Realized engineering is not my cup of tea. Did MBA right after without any work experience, etc. And then right after MBA, joined Hindustan Unilever right out of campus to enter the marketing world, and spent around first spent 3 years in Unilever. Then this is to 2009 to 2012. The startup bug hit me back then, but I didn't know shit about it. So I was like, need to do this on someone else's money. At that time, went and joined Rebel Foods, which was called Fasos at the time.
Yeah.
Uh, I was the first entrepreneur in residence at Fasos. Did that for 2 years. Realized that running restaurants is a hellhole. Just because you like to sit at a restaurant doesn't mean you can run it. Most probably the opposite. So 2014 left that and came back to Unilever. Then spent another 5 years at Unilever, and then in 2019 quit Unilever for the second time. So they have a photograph of
Wow.
me on the wall that we will not let this happen to us again.
Again.
And
Yes.
yeah, and 2019 is when I started this brand, which initially we used to call And Nothing Else. And then in 8 months after our existence, we uh, rebranded to The Whole Truth. Yeah, so that's the professional journey in a nutshell. Personally, what was happening in the background, not in the background actually, quite in the foreground, that I used to be a really, really fat, obese kid. So at 19 years of age, I was 110 kgs. And then one fine day, I think it was some girl rejected me in college or something. And I in my head, the reason was because I was fat, because I couldn't accept that I was boring. so I decided that I'm going to lose all this fat. So in like 9 months, I went batshit crazy and I just started running and stopped eating. And in 9 months, I lost 40 kgs. And then
Wow.
yeah, it was just stupidity. It was just madness. And and I thought that now I'm a thin guy and like all my thin friends, and I used to think thin is equal to fit. I can eat and drink the way they do. I did that, and lo and behold, in 2.5 years, all of that weight came back. Then I lost it again. Then again, I thought that now I'm a thin guy. I can do whatever I want to do. And lo and behold, in 3 years, all of it came back again. So by
You
the age of
have a thing with these
26,
cyclical changes in your life, it
yeah,
seems.
yes, clearly. No, I am daft. I have no doubt in that fact, because it took me 3 cycles to finally, stop just accusing myself and ask myself the question that okay, I might be slow, but how can this happen to me thrice? There must be something else wrong in the world also. Coming from a middle class family, you're always told तुमने कुछ गलत किया है, like check yourself.
Mm.
Right, so I always, and it leads to an internal locus of control, but for how long? Like 3 times I fell into this trap. So that's when I started researching about food, and I realized that a large part of my food ever since I left home was being replaced by packaged food. And when I started doing the research, I realized that hey, actually all these healthy choices that I think I'm making, I am replacing my cola with juices, and I'm replacing my uh, paranthas with cornflakes. These are not healthy choices at all.
Mm.
I'm just, replacing one kind of carb with another kind of sugar, and they like colas and juices have exactly the same amount of sugar. So I'm actually lying to myself, and that's why the weight keeps coming back, because I think I've changed my habits, but but effectively nothing's changed, right? And all this while I was a marketeer, but in Unilever I always worked in the personal care side of things. So I was selling you shampoos and soaps and stuff. Uh, what didn't dawn on me was the same marketing magic that we use on personal care gets used on foods too. Because there are so many legal
Yeah.
loopholes. You can call something no added sugar, but it can have 10 different forms of sugar which are not called sugar, and all of that good stuff. So it was so when I realized this in my third cycle is when I started writing a blog called Fit Shit, and this used to be a side hustle during my second Unilever stint. Over the weekends, I used to write a blog called Fit Shit, which I wrote for 2 years on the trot. So like 100 weekends, 100 articles went out,
Wow.
and a lot of people started reading the blog, which was a shock to me because I was writing 2000 word long articles, not listicles, like 6 ways to do 8 things, none of that shit, right? I used to go really,
Mm.
really deep into topics and people were reading it. That's where the I got two insights. One, there is a section of the Indian population, people like you and me, who just happen to be born in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, but are our the content we consume, the thoughts we process, the conversations we have are all the same as some New York, London, San Francisco guy. But go to the retail shelf, our brands are stuck in the 80s. Like our marketing is still about dumbing stuff down for consumers and taking them for a ride because hey, who's gonna know, right? And B, I realized that these people, when it comes to food, really give a shit. That's why they're reading 2,000 word articles and then asking me questions and engaging with me, etc. It means that they know that something is wrong. They just don't know what's wrong. So that was the big insight. I found all of these readers of mine had this inherent distrust of packaged food. Like they would express it as ये घर का खाना तो नहीं है, right? ये बाहर का खाना है and इसमें कुछ तो खराब होगा. I don't know what, but कुछ तो है, right? That made me feel कि why isn't there a food brand which just says that, you know what, the food you're about to eat has A, B, C, D, E and nothing else, right? And we are just going to tell you what's gone into our food. We're not going to put a sexy model on it. We're not going to put like dripping chocolate and flying almonds and all of that shit. Food's got nothing to do with that. Food should be about ingredients. If you are actually making clean food, you should be able to proudly declare what's gone into your food, right? Why are you ashamed? Why do you hide it at the back? Yeah, so that was a simple thought from which the brand was born, and at that time, the we wanted it to be so stark that we said let's call it and nothing else. That every time you see this pack, you know that ये चार चीजें हैं, A, B, C, D, E and nothing else. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's how I took the in my parents' eyes and the world's eyes the stupid decision of leaving Unilever the second time and saying that I will make my own brand because I was done with Fitchit also felt like standing on the sidelines and commenting, but I felt that if I, who is earning so well, has zero downside in life, and has the professional chops to create a brand, like 10 years having worked in marketing, I should know a little bit more than the next guy about marketing, creating brands. Then I need to throw my hat in the ring. I can't, stand by the sidelines and just keep commenting, oh, ye galat ho raha, ye galat ho raha, right? I have to do something about it. So that was the motivation why I started.
That's really interesting. What do you think are like the most so like one of the reasons why I think a lot of the brands we don't recognize is because of preservatives and stuff like that, right? So
Yeah.
is that so I mean like if you are putting your things out there, I'm guessing the number of preservatives are a lot lower or they're natural or what have you, right? So how did you approach that? What was your thought process there? And I mean like just around other chemical
Yeah.
components,
Yeah. I
right? I mean
mean,
like
what was the shortcut that you fundamentally had to avoid which everyone else takes, right? Because it's a novel thought. I completely understand the thought behind wanting to build something like this, but it's also something which people have not done or avoided doing because it's not easy or it's more expensive, or it's like, what are all those
Yeah.
things that you had to sort of internalize and say, you know what, it's hard but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and that was a doubt in my in my head also, right? That maybe it's not been done because it can't be done. Maybe packaged food requires preservatives, otherwise shelf life goes for a toss. Maybe packaged food requires these sugary liquids to bind the thing because otherwise it'll keep breaking. And the like the way I solved it first, I didn't have any conviction कि ये हो जाएगा, right? I thought, what is the way to get conviction? Try it. So, and I did all of this as my weekend hustle. I didn't leave my job till the time I had proof of concept in my hand कि ये हो सकता है. And the way I approached it was I had written this article in Fitchit about a year into Fitchit about comparing the protein bar market in India. So I just went to the grocery store, got some 10 protein bars from the shelf, and I like science the shit out of it. I just compared all of them on my own framework of what defines healthy, and I gave people a full primer, and that like really shot through. Like even today on Google, if you search best protein bar India, that article will organically rank on SEO. right? And during the course of that research, I realized that hey, protein bars don't seem to need too much equipment. All it needs is a oven and a mixie. So this concept that I've been toying within my head theoretically, let me try and make a protein bar. And by this time, by the way, I had no inkling that I'm going to start up. Right, I was just doing this as a thought experiment कि करके देखते हैं पता नहीं बन भी सकता है कि नहीं. And I am not a chef. I don't have any food background, etc. in life. Took me about 6-7 months to get to a product which was 70-80% there. And I'll talk about how I solved a few of the problems. But the bigger learning was this can be done. It's not been done because no one's applied that lens. No one's asked that question, because what's the incentive to ask the question? If you can sell half
Yeah.
truths and lies and earn more margin because you're putting cheap stuff, what's your capitalistic incentive
Yeah.
to make something which is fully clean, which the ingredients will cost higher and hence the brand will be more expensive, plus you will have to put in the effort of explaining all of this gyan to people. क्या जरूरत है, बिक रहा है ना, मतलब people are buying. So what is the incentive? So I realized that it's not been done because people haven't applied this lens to food. And then once we applied that lens, I realized, मतलब we are all fairly intelligent folks are. Maybe I can't solve for 12 months of shelf life, but can I solve for 4 months of shelf life? Because it seems like उतने में business बनाया जा सकता है. If a raw pressery can build a business on a 10-day shelf life product and an epigame can build a business on a 20-day shelf life product, why can't I build a business on a 4-month shelf life product? Now, can I get to 4 months shelf life? Yes. How do I do it? First, apply science. Science says shelf life goes for a toss when in food microorganisms grow. Microorganisms, for their growth, need two things: they need energy and water. If you cut the supply of one of these two things, the growth slows down drastically. So I made a recipe through trial and error that has zero water in it. So I can't remove energy. There will be energy from the food that I'm making, but I cut out the water. Second was use ingredients which inherently have very high shelf life. So nuts, dates, when they come to your home for Diwali, वो अगली दिवाली तक पड़े रहते हैं, खराब नहीं होते. Right?
True.
Inherently they have high shelf life. So इनके composite से जो product बनेगा should also have high shelf life. Seems like first principles.
Yeah.
Right, so but it was just applying that lens and asking that question, and then you start finding those answers. So are we, our competitors have 12-18 months of shelf life, are we worse off than them? Yes. But can we build a business on a 4-month shelf life product? I think emphatically yes. If we can get
Yeah.
consumers to see the difference and pay us for it, I think we can.
So,
Wow.
I'm guessing when you're talking about this multiple month, 4 month versus 12 month shelf life, right? How much do you anticipate happening to retail versus online for you in the long run? I mean, like we're talking about D2C, right? Generally. So,
Yeah.
what's your prediction in, like, say, over the next 5 years of your business, right? What do you expect to be via physical stocking, and what do you expect to happen online?
I think over 5 years, though, about 40%, 50% odd will be retail. Foods is a heavily retail category. You can start online, and you must start online because it has many, many benefits of direct consumer reach, etc. But 95% of the category sits in offline in retail stores. And just think back to your own food purchases, you will see proof of that concept. We are the most internet savvy audience in the country, and yet 90% of our food purchases comes from stores. I'm
Mhm.
very sure, like unless one of us is an anomaly.
Do you consider, like, Grofers, a Swiggy Mart, or something like that? Do you consider that online or offline in this division?
If I consider the only thing that I've not considered right now is quick commerce, which is a very recent thing, which is
Okay,
your Instamart, Zepto, Grofers
right,
becoming Blinkit wala space,
Yeah.
because
right.
that might be a fundamental shift that actually breaks, the dependence on the Kirana store.
Mm.
Uh,
Right.
so that I don't know how that plays out, to be honest. Remains to be seen. But if I take marketplaces, which is your Amazon, Flipkart, big baskets of the world, and our own website sales, uh, As of today, that's 85-90% of business. I expect that to become half and half over a long period of time. I expect retail to be 40, 45, 50% of the business over 5 years, because that's where
And
the market is.
that's where you're saying and you're talking about food as a category, which is where you're saying we're all visual food shoppers, right? We see something in front of us and we basically pick it up
It's
versus
not
going
just
seeking it out on the internet.
it's not just that. There are, I think, multiple dimensions to why that's the consumer behavior. One is that, the other is frequency of purchase. So when you compare, say, personal care to food, frequency of purchase on food is far higher. You buy a shampoo bottle, lasts you 2 months. You buy a biscuit packet, lasts you 5 days, right? The higher
So
the
did you say
frequency of
days or minutes?
yep, depends.
Yes.
So if you take, the higher the frequency of purchase, the lower the online sale of that category, because very high friction. And what that also means is, you want it immediately. So you just realize, oh fuck, I'm on my last two biscuits, and you'll tell someone to go downstairs and get you the next packet. Whereas in creams, for example, you will see that bottle getting empty, 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 empty. You can see, अभी मैं squeeze करके निकालूंगा तो 3 दिन चल जाएगा. अभी I'll go online and order it, 3 दिन में आ जाएगा. Right?
Mhm.
So, plus then there is, from the business lens, there are also unit economics. So, when someone sells you a cream for $1,000, pays shipping for 50 gram, the logistics makes a lot of sense for them. But someone sells you a 50 rupee ka chips ka packet, which is largely air, but volumetric weight is 500 grams because that's that big a packet. The logistics go for a toss, right? So the all these variables are stacked against food becoming heavily online. So will online of food grow? Yes, but will it ever be as large as personal care will be? Most probably it will not even be one third of personal care. A large portion will continue to be offline in the 5 to 7 year time frame. मतलब, I don't know how the world changes beyond that. तब तक भी नहीं पता most probably. But from what we can see now, yeah.
Awesome. This is actually, I mean, obviously you being the marketer that you have been, and worked in sort of the fast FMCG big brand retail category, you've obviously seen a lot of these insights. And there's a little bit more which I want to dig into specifically about, obviously, what went into building Whole Truth Foods. But before that, we're going to take a quick break and come back and talk some more.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says, writer-director Supan Verma tells Cyrus what it was like co-directing Season 2 of The Family Man. In their new miniseries Ek Sawal Kahi Jawab, the Pulyabazi hosts ask, how much should the government's tax income be? What's life like in your 40s? Actor Sikandar Kher talks to Ritasha and Ayushi on Agla Station Adulthood. On All Things Policy, the Takshashila folks shed light on a probable global treaty for pandemic management. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna explains how to give up on the stress of not finding solutions to our problems right away. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. We really do appreciate the word of mouth. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms that you're listening to us on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is. And we are also on YouTube. On YouTube, you can check out our various channels on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda and CoinSwitch Kuber. Thank you for making this possible.
Hey, welcome back, guys. Shashank, you've been actually sharing a lot more insights about generally D2C than we even knew between us. And how all of that insight is what you put into building this food brand. Obviously, the personal story that you shared drove the reasons behind why things have to be healthy. But when you actually got started, right, you launched and nothing else. You started with bars as a category. What was the initial reception? And how did you see that this has massive potential beyond the stats and figures and the Excel sheets you might have made? What made you sort of give your first real answer to, hey, this is really working and this is going to go multifold?
So I think there is the subjective and objective answer to this. Subjectively, in the first few months itself, anecdotally, the number of people who organically started talking about the brand, my friend calling me up saying I was talking to a friend of mine and he was telling me मैं आजकल ये bar खाता हूँ, and then he pulled out your bar, and those stories happened to us like dime a dozen. Like in fact, internally we have one of, like, we always have this session saying that the kind of consumer love we get is abnormal, and we shouldn't get numb to it. We shouldn't start taking it for granted, because we just,
Yeah.
from day one we started getting intense consumer love, both in terms of width as well as depth. That people were writing us and still do write to us like love letters. Like we get mail and tweet threads where people just go on either decoding the packaging or talking about the mission or talking about the
Wow.
ads or talking about the products. In fact, in a month or so, you like, we had so much of it, we've actually built something called a love wall, which will go live on the website in a month or so, where we are trying to collate all of it and showcase it.
Amazing.
That it is unbelievable the kind of love we were getting, right? So that was the subjective anecdotal, which, to be honest, I think to entrepreneurs that matters more than the objective, because you're in your heart and in your bones you start feeling that people are getting it, like ये समझ में आ रहा है लोगों को कि हम क्या करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. Objectively, the biggest number in the first few months was repeat rates. Our repeat rates were through the roof. Like we were getting upwards of 50% repeat rates, which is unheard of in these categories. So whoever would try would get hooked. And we are a fairly expensive product. We are not a cheap brand, etc. Right? So everyone used to have this doubt कि अरे, people might try out of novelty factor, but no one's gonna come back. And our repeat rates were like double industry average types. So that was the one big objective number, which told me that product is doing well. Repeat doesn't happen due to brand gap. Trial might happen because people like your
Yeah.
story, like your packaging, like your ad, all of that stuff. Repeat happens due to product, right? So people are getting the story which I knew anecdotally, and people are getting the product which I knew through repeat. And these two things combined told me, matlab, like, what else is there? Matlab, this is the business, so this should do well.
So, speaking of repeat, how's the
Amazing.
subscription part of things playing out for you?
It started off well, but it stagnated.
Okay.
Our super loyal consumers happily shifted to subscription. But then I think we started hitting a ceiling of the number of people in India who are fine with giving me their credit card on file, right? And then RBI keeps changing guidelines. OTP आएगा नहीं आएगा, दो बार ही आएगा, all of that stuff. So I just feel that both consumer behavior in India, we in general don't like people having our cards on file at large, not all of us, but at large, and the lack of rulings and guidelines, and किसी card पे चलता है, किसी पे नहीं चलता, all of that stuff has created a certain level of friction that it's not growing as much as we'd want it to. It initially started off really, really well.
Yeah. I would think that your products, like, given what you're saying, right? I mean, like, it's a slightly more expensive. You get a discount on the subscription. It's a protein bar or an energy bar or nutrition bar or whatever that may be, which you are eating probably 4 times a week, 5 times a week. You're eating them on like a regular thing. I would have thought that if any place would be a kind of like ripe for subscription, it would be this kind of product. But I guess the payment challenges explain that, right? I mean, like,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. And you're right. That's the logic by which, like, in our third month of existence, only we started subscription. And it grew by the blazes. Like, in 3-4 months only, it became 15-20% of business. But then at that level, it went and started growing really slowly after that, because I think we started hitting the ceiling of this consumer behavior slash friction on the payment front, which can be overcome by intense brand love.
And
Like,
right.
you're like कि मतलब मैं झेल लूंगा प्रॉब्लम, कोई बात नहीं आपके लिए टाइप्स.
That's hard.
do you think
But
there's also a little bit of the market sentiment, rather just the format of the market, where people like a little bit of optionality when it comes to any purchase for that matter, right? I think
Might
that's
be.
where that's the opposite of the subscription mentality. Like you don't want to be locked in.
Yeah,
Given you're a
yeah,
food product brand, and the fact that you've diversified into new products as well,
yeah.
which we should talk about. Uh, do you see that as one of the things which people need in food? Like I remember most food people we've spoken to, food entrepreneurs, say that you can't survive on that one SKU, and it's like people try out new things in food a lot. Like there's an inherent need to try out something different in food every time. So even though you love one product and one brand, you want more. You want diversity somehow. Is that something you consciously saw and then obviously built for?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's another big headwind for foods businesses, that inherently on food we are all variety seekers. And again, like every time you think of going out, the first question you ask is, आज किसी नई जगह चलते हैं, आज कुछ नया ट्राई करते हैं, right? You never say, चल आज 10वीं बारी उसी जगह चलते हैं जो हमें हर बारी जाते हैं, right? That's usually not what you say. You're usually like, let's try something new, right? Unlike, again, let's draw a parallel to personal care, where if one cream suits you, you just keep repeating it, right?
Yeah.
That this cream suits me, this shampoo suits me, this, body lotion suits me. There's no need to take panga unless there is some specific problem that happens. Okay, now hair fall has started happening. Let me try a hair fall shampoo,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, you're like, this
Yeah. Unless
shampoo
your need
works.
changes. Yeah.
Ha, right. So that is definitely a headwind both for subscriptions, because you're right. We used to call our early subscribers and say, "आप subscription क्यों छोड़ रहे हो? What happened?" And their answer would be, "यार, come to my home and see, there are 50 of your bars lying. I am tired of having the same five flavors 100 times over, right? So please come with new flavors. Otherwise, like I've consumed so much that I am done with this, right? So yeah, food mein that is a big problem, and what feels for a consumer, it is a flavor, right? If you now launch a lemon flavored bar, it is a flavor. But for me as a business, it is a full new SKU, new ingredient, matlab, not all new ingredient, but a different production process and all of that
Right.
stuff
Yeah.
happens. No one goes and says, right, कि मेरे को मेरे body lotion में 8 flavor चाहिए. कि
Yeah.
कि जी स्ट्रॉबेरी वाला लगा लगा के थक गया, अभी कोको वाला निकालो टाइप्स.
Yeah.
But food has that issue for sure. Yeah.
Interesting. Could I? So again, if I remember correctly, right, Shashank, you started probably like the year before the pandemic came
November
in.
2019. Yeah. So
November.
four
So
months before the
4 months
pandemic.
before it happened, right? How did that change your plans around this? Because you're a food business, right? Which I'm assuming, while you were looking at online, you were looking at like the retail market fairly seriously initially, and from early days, given your Unilever experience, right? So how did that flip your stuff for you?
Actually, we were fairly lucky because our strategy always was, as I said, that online is a great place to start. And in fact, Vito went even more extreme. For the first, so now we are 25 months old, 2 years old effectively. And in the first year of existence, we were purely D2C, only from our website. No Amazon, nothing, nowhere else, right? And that was the strategy from day one. So actually, COVID only accelerated and made that strategy look even better. Because the strategy was always that I wanted the brand to get discovered the way I wanted it to get discovered, not be discovered on as a pack on some retail shelf. Because then you just consume the pack, not the story, not the emotion, not the why. You just consume a product, right? And I didn't want that to be the way the brand got consumed. So we were actually, first year was purely website. Then from 13th month onwards, we started listing on the Amazons and Flipkarts of the world. And it's only 3 months back that we started physical retail. And all of this was like, actually, this is what we'd stated we will do upfront. So that's why I say we are lucky that COVID Like maybe without COVID, we would have done physical retail 2 months earlier than we started it, which was 3 months back ki jagah 5 months back hota, but
Sure.
not more than that. And on the online part of the business, COVID, apart from the first 2 months of the lockdown where the world went crazy, no one knew what to expect and what to do, which was April and May of 2020. Apart from those 2 months, COVID was only a tailwind. It only accelerated online businesses, so we were lucky there.
I think that's around the time I discovered it myself, and yeah, very similar experience of sort of just jumping on board and insane, loving it so much that I had to tell other people to try it. So
Tell other people.
clearly that worked, and and just as a general thought process behind D2C, coming from your Unilever experience to sort of selling directly, right? How big what is that conscious business strategy decision point that you said, okay, now I will go to the marketplaces? Because I think that's a very distinct behavior change of a D2C brand choosing to be fully controlled, not just the supply chain, but even the ordering, right? The ordering piece, the owning
Yeah.
all your discounts and margins, etc., versus to also being in marketplace. When did you, and not every D2C brand does that, so that's why the question as to why did you feel it was necessary, and what's the business metric you looked at when you decided to do it?
Actually, most D2C brands start both things together. There are very few people who do only website, especially in foods. Foods में तो कोई भी नहीं है. I can't think
Yeah,
of one
food,
example.
probably food is sure.
Personal care, few examples, but usually everyone has a marketplaces plus website strategy. For us, I look at both marketplaces and retail as distribution. You don't get to do brand building there. They're distribution, right? You get access to more and more people. Yeah. And I and you can open up distribution anytime you want, whenever you feel that now enough and more people know of your brand and have heard of your brand and like your brand, but they're not trying it because friction of coming to website is too high. मैं कितनी वेबसाइट्स पे जाके क्या क्या खरीदूं etc, all of that stuff, right? So the thing to gauge is, when do you believe that the brand is far ahead of revenue, and hence to monetize the gap, you should open up distribution. That's the fundamental question to ask.
Nice.
Right. And the second thing is, which is from an internal lens, which is there comes a time when cost of acquisition on a Facebook, Google intermediary platform, which is how you have to acquire if you're doing D2C, starts rising, right? And that's another indicator of saying that now, rather than spending more and more and giving Mr. Zuckerberg a bump in his valuation, why should I not take Mr. Bezos's help and get some new people into the fold? So these were the 2 years. So in the first 12 months, through the internal cost of acquisition number started going up after 12 months. They continue to keep going up, but now my dependence on that channel has gone down, right? And the second was more anecdotal, more subjective, but the number of people we saw who wanted to buy, loved the brand, had heard from hundreds of people. Our Instagram following had reached about 100K in the first year itself, etc. And our sales was nowhere near that number. That kind of gave us the signal that clearly people don't have access right now. We need to start building access now.
Making
And
it
most
easier.
probably, people who will buy it will not buy it blankly. They will already come with some impression of the brand.
Got it.
So,
On another
yes,
note, sorry, Amit, before you go there,
no,
just
go
on
ahead.
that product, the variety piece, right? Obviously, you looked at markets ahead as to, when you said you did your research on protein bars, that's why you launched in protein bars. And then you looked at these other markets. We were speaking earlier about how you've now even launched peanut butter, and you've launched muesli. These are all uh, tier one foods, as we were calling them. And what is that? What is that market data that you're seeing? That why are these things potentially large disruptions to existing products? Are you applying the same lens of obviously the about the ingredient lens and the health lens is definitely there to stand for your brand, but are you also doing anything on the manufacturing side, on the production side? Is there anything which you and hence other D2Cs, maybe not necessarily in food, are able to do different from the big sort of FMCG brands that make it viable for you to have these multi-product mass scale products?
So I think two questions in there. One is how do we
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at categories to enter, and for us that answer always starts from mission actually. So we never created a brand saying पहले प्रोटीन बार करेंगे फिर म्यूजली करेंगे फिर नट बटर करेंगे फिर कुछ और करेंगे. And we were never making a bar brand. That's why the world's largest bar brand is a one of the largest is like Kind Bar, the other is RX Bar. Like they put the word bar in their name because that's what they were building, right? We called ourselves the whole truth because according to us we are building a truth brand. Yeah, and the idea is wherever in whichever category we believe consumers are being lied to, we will try and create 100% honest option, and the day we create it we will enter that category. Yeah, so we will go wide. Our crusade is far larger than 3 categories, it is 30 categories. Yeah, which ones do we enter first? A, capability, what are we able to make, because our R&D is, as we were discussing, a little bit complex, right? Because I don't have the crutch of chemicals to fall back on. So to solve for preservatives, to solve for shelf life, to solve for binding, etc., I have to do everything through trial and error, right? Even flavor, like I can only use ingredients which are inherently flavorful because we refuse to put any even natural flavor
Artificial.
in the
Yeah.
product because all flavors are artificial. Natural flavors are also extracted through a chemical process. So we just shun it all completely, right? But that means like if you ever taste a blueberry and you taste a bar which has blueberry flavor in it, these are two different things altogether. And then
Truffle oil.
exactly.
Truffle oil is the one that gets me, right? I'm like,
Right.
this
Yeah.
tastes like gas.
Yeah.
Truffles taste nice. This thing tastes horrendous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and natural things lose flavor over time. So the way it used to taste on
Yeah.
month one is not how it's not gone bad. It's just lost flavor, etc. So answer of which category we enter is which one we are able to crack from an R&D and product lens that lives up to our philosophy. We can proudly declare all ingredients upfront, and we started working on it because we believe that currently consumers are getting non-truthful options. Right. Second part of the question: how do we differentiate ourselves with these big FMCG firms, etc. See, this is a classic David versus Goliath battle, and David never wins by playing Goliath's game.
Yeah.
Right? You play on Goliath's turf, he will crush you. And in this case, Goliath's strength is do a few things, but do them at scale. Like make one, like when we launched in parallel, Kisan, which is a Unilever brand, launched their own peanut butter also, by the way. Right? So Kisan, your ketchup brand, now has a peanut butter. They launched one SKU. We launched 15, right? Because they were like, we will take this one pack and plaster the country with it, right? We
Yeah.
said, okay, you take that consumer. I'm not going to fight on that consumer with you today. But by the way, I have 4 flavors. In each flavor, there is a creamy and crunchy texture. And in each of these 8, there is a large and a small size pack. So for the discerning top
Wow.
tier consumer, please, this is the range. And oh, by the way, it's 100% clean, which the other brand cannot claim. Right. So we are playing the exact opposite game. Can it be scaled, etc.? I don't know. Time will tell. We'll find out the answer. I can't say that I have the answer. But what I know for sure is, had I done what they are doing, then I wouldn't even have gotten to a place where I can earn the right to ask the question. I would have died long ago because I'd be fighting their battle. So my for every startup founder, the first few years are about survival, right? कि पहले जिंदा तो रहो, थोड़े बड़े तो हो जाओ, उसके बाद
Yeah.
उसके बाद ये क्वेश्चन
Yeah.
पूछना कि how will we beat the other guy.
Cool. I wanted to ask you a question, which is not really. It kind of is business related, but it's a little this as well, right? So initially, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong about this because it's been a long time since we spoke about this, but if initially I remember correctly, you mostly got funding through a bunch of angels, right? And now you closed with Sequoia recently, right? So how does that change things for you?
Actually, no, the factually slightly incorrect.
Okay,
So
so I'm clear. Okay,
when we started itself, so I had raised a pre-seed, one of those paper plan money raises
right.
of folklore had happened to us.
Okay.
And that was like 40%, actually 20% angels, 20% from a small fund called Sauce.vc, and about 60% from Matrix, which is a fairly large
Oh, Matrix is a
fund.
large fund. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matrix was on board from a pre-seed stage.
Okay. All right.
And then in Series A is
Nice.
where Sequoia also came in. So we've had
Okay.
growth
So
pressure from day one.
So yeah, exactly. So my question is not really this. I thought it went from like having angels to now working with Sequoia, but I guess if you're working with Matrix, then it would be the same kind of requirements. Cool,
Yeah, same.
cool.
Very
Uh,
nice. Shashank, that's quite a bit of insight on obviously not just your products, but also D2C in general. And I think it's the perfect sort of kickoff for our, like I said, thematic series of discussions. As closing notes, obviously there's a long roadmap. I'm sure you've promised your investors quite a bit, where your hockey stick graphs go up to the right and up. But what can we expect in the near future? Shout out to folks who want to try out your products. Obviously, we'll share the website and everything else. You're fairly popular on Twitter. I know you talk to a lot of folks there. You want to shout out your handle as well, and give us a taste of what's to come.
Sure. So I can't reveal the names of the categories, but as I said, every 6 months or so, you will find us launching a new category, a new range. And when I say category, I mean like muesli is a category, peanut butter is a category. Within that, we keep doing innovations around flavors, etc. But every 5 6 months, we intend to launch and get into a newer category. And in our parlance, when we enter a category, we clean it up. That we'll give you 100% clean
Nice.
option
hmm.
in that category. And it's been 3 months since we launched peanut butter, so in another 3 months, there's another one coming.
Awesome.
And on the brand and content front, which is our other big love, where consumers really engage with us a lot, you will also see I don't know if you guys saw the Whole Truth Sayers campaign that we did, which was about honest influencer marketing. That when we went out to try and get influencers on our brand, all we got hit in the face was with a rate list that ये इसके इतने follower है, इतने लाख रुपए दोगे तो ये बोल देगा जो आपको बोलना है
Hmm.
बोल देगा. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is exactly why I don't want to do. Right? This is exactly why I don't want to do celebrity advertising, right? Because no one believes that Shah Rukh Khan is bathing with a Lux soap.
Yeah.
Or that
I-
or that
Is there a story you want to tell about celebrities? I don't know if you want to tell that story or not.
which one?
Well, I mean, like somebody sent like somebody found out your like warehouse address and shit, right? And sent some car
Oh, yeah,
driver.
yeah, yeah. Arey, wow. Yes, yes. Arey, wow. I'm impressed that you remember. Amazing.
I remember something
Super.
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very nice. Well, a lot of celebrities actually are big fans of. Unfortunately, they can't go around saying they're big fans because that's opportunity cost for them. But they've been nice enough to post stories, etc. And one day this happened. The anecdote Amit is referring to, that we were sitting in our office, and this guy shows up at our warehouse in Sakinaka, and he's like, करीना मैम ने भेजा है, उनका बॉक्स दे दीजिए. And I'm like, कौन करीना मैम और उन्होंने क्यों भेज दिया तुम्हें, यहाँ पे क्या हो गया? एंड इज लाइक करीना कपूर, उन्होंने कल ऑर्डर डाला था, उन्होंने आज सुबह ऑर्डर डाला है, बट शी डजंट वांट टू वेट टिल टुमारो, तो उन्होंने अभी मुझे भेज दिया कि बॉक्स लेके आ जाओ. लाइक वेट, डिड यू जस्ट
Another whole
से?
level of D2C.
मतलब सब कुछ बंद कर दो, अभी सिर्फ ये बॉक्स बनेगा और मैं बैठ के देखूंगा ये बॉक्स बनता हुआ. So yeah, but yeah, I was saying that on the brand front also. So we did this whole truth sayers campaign, which was when we saw this shit happening in the influencer marketing world, and equally we saw many good influencers, albeit micro or nano influencers, who were also feeling this problem that brands just give them a script to parrot, and it doesn't matter whether they really believe it or not. They're like, पैसा दे रहे हैं, जो बोल रहे हैं बोल रहे हो, वो बोलो, right? So that got a lot of love, and we've just announced our first batch of 30 whole truth sayers, who are up, a mix of slightly bigger folks and largely micro nano sort of influencers who genuinely love our brand and want to work with the brand, and we don't give them any script, we don't tell them anything. In fact, it scares a lot of them कि मैं ये भी बोल सकता हूँ, जो बोलना है आपने बोलो, because if you love the brand, then please express your love the way you express it best. If you're a painter, paint about it. If you're a singer, sing about it. मतलब जो करना है करो. Why should I care how you will express your love? I've already established that you love the
Lovely.
brand, right? So that's something that a lot of that content is coming out nowadays. And on the again, I don't know if you've seen our first brand ad, which features this Garib artist. There's another version of that coming up. So a lot of stuff on the brand side too to look forward to.
Awesome. Great. Just a quick reminder, everybody, please do like or share or whatever, drop a review wherever you're listening to it. And I know you can do this Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube, on various places. Please do that. That does help us. And if you enjoyed the conversation with Shashank and you want to hear, want to tell somebody else to listen to the episode, do kind of point them here. Word of mouth helps.
Awesome. And sorry, I forgot to mention our handles. So
Yes,
Yes.
consumer love is always good.
yes, absolutely. Not going to let any chance of free publicity go by. So the website is thewholetruthfoods.com. That's thewholetruthfoods.com. And if you want to see the content that we do on Instagram, we're at the same handle. That's the Whole Truth Foods at Instagram. And you can just search for us on YouTube also. So we do a bi-weekly series there called the Whole Truth Academy, where we take one topic around food and fitness and explain it in real depth. That also gets a lot of consumer love. I'd love for you guys to check it out. So just search the Whole Truth Foods channel on YouTube too, and do subscribe to it.
Brilliant. I guess your acting skills and influencer skills yourself are top notch, Shashank. So now we know.
Yeah, lack of budgets teaches you more than anything else in life, sir. So when you can't afford
Poverty is the best teacher.
poverty,
Yes.
is the
Totally.
absolutely.
That is what an all-round founder needs to be. And yes, like all your products, it's nothing else but this. So
Yep.
amazing. Thank you so much for this awesomely engaging conversation, Shashank. We will obviously keep trying out all your new stuff and see the whole truth finally, dominate the market someday. So
Oh, absolutely.
thank you so
Amen to
much.
that.
It was great
Thank
having
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
I V M